It was watching my mother take care of the elderly that I got this gift. Only few individuals have the patience to take responsibility for someone else's basic needs. And I understand why it's like that. It wasn't for nothing that, for a long time of my life, I looked down on my younger sister and didn't help her with simple things like, for instance, her schoolwork. But it was watching my own mother's work routine that I learned to take pleasure in helping others. Coming from a humble family and being the only woman among her brothers, my mother looked for legitimate ways to make money. Combining business with pleasure, she made herself available to take care of the elderly. This may even seem like an easy job, but have you ever imagined yourself having to feed someone over 80? The smell of medicine some elderly people exhale can cause a breakdown in many young people who think they are unstoppable. That's because only then do you realize that youth will say goodbye to you soon, and what will remain is just a flaccid and fragile body that needs help even to change their diapers. Not every elderly person is healthy, and if you decide to stick with the sedentary life you currently lead for a longer time, you will see for yourself I am telling the truth. The simple act of getting up from a bed or chair can become an almost impossible mission. Bathing may require support from all sides, and, even so, your fragile body can become unbalanced, and you can fall anytime. One of the seniors I cared for months ago passed away after falling out of a rocking chair and breaking his hip one weekend afternoon. It's a rather ridiculous death for someone who has lived so long and has so much experience, isn't it? Particularly after these experiences and the repetitive routine, I realized I absolutely do not want to grow old until the time I need help. It sounds hypocritical on my part, I know, but I don't think I would have the brains to depend on someone like me 24/7. One random morning I received a phone call in which a young woman asked if I had my schedule available to offer my services to her grandmother. The girl explained the whole situation the family was going through, and I was not at all incredulous when I heard another unfortunate story of a rich lady who was abandoned by all her relatives for the simple fact that she no longer had enough strength to maintain her routine. And, above all, for being such an unbearable person. Keeping her tone, the girl on the call offered me an unusual amount of money and explained this fact as a way to reward me for having to accompany her grandmother for an entire month, while the woman who usually took care of her was away on vacation. Obviously I accepted the service and, after being informed of the address where the lady lived, I was left satisfied with having closed a great deal. The following week, I got up for another exhausting day at work, eager to find out what my new patient's temper was really like. Despite the fact that families always complain about the behavior of their fragile loved ones, most of the time, when I meet them, I find myself surprised to come across a lady or a gentleman who is absolutely kind and friendly. Therefore, I'm used to assign people's bad habit of abandoning their grandparents or parents as an easy way to deal with life without thinking about old age and the impotence that also awaits them in the future. Arriving at the address given, I found a huge house compared to the others in the city, and that explained the amount of money paid by the family, who were also going on vacation. I was greeted by the granddaughter of the woman I was going to look after. The girl showed me around the house, explained about her dear grandmother's customs, and about the cleaning lady who was hired to clean the place every week. But after giving all the information and muffled laughter, we said goodbye and, finally, I was alone with the woman. Lucy was her name, an 86-year-old lady, bedridden due to bone complications and with a mental disorder, which was probably what affected her relationship with her family, as, suffering from this affliction, she had constant mood swings. But despite that, she managed most of the time to be conscious, even if she was not moving around the halls like a healthy person. That same day I spent the whole morning and afternoon talking to Lucy about her life, her adventures as a rebellious teenager going goth around town, and afterwards we talked a lot about religion. According to my patient, there is something beyond what we can perceive or see with the naked eye. Whether that thing is positive or negative, we must always be respectful and grateful for everything that has happened to us or for the way we currently are, because any divergence in what we now snub as routine can make a lot of difference when modified. Laughing at it all, Lucy gave as an example her body, which used to be strong and envied by all her friends or desired by all her boyfriends, but what was now nothing more than a hindrance in her life. Unfortunately, after having to interrupt our conversation several times to medicate Lucy, at some point she got tired, said some things that I admit I didn't understand, and then fell asleep. While she was suffering from the calming effects of the meds, I decided to just walk around the house. It was almost like a mansion. There were several rooms scattered around, and each one showed how happy that woman had been, financially speaking, equipped with everything from a piano to a shelf full of books by the most varied authors you can imagine. Overjoyed after a well-explored tour, I checked if Lucy was all right and woke her up for her nightly feedings, as well as the last of the day's meds. So then I said goodbye, lining up the cross right next to her bed and walked to the room they had offered me. As soon as I laid down, the thought that this woman was feeling deeply sad embraced me. Imagining how desperate it must be for her to be completely abandoned by her family made me lose my breath. So it took me a good few minutes to control my breathing until I fell asleep. Hours later, I woke up. Despair took hold of me and my breathing was even heavier. It was as if something horrible had happened, and when I was meaning to get up to get a glass of water, I was surprised to find myself trapped. Lying down in the dark room, I tried to scream, begging for help, but my mouth wouldn't move, neither would my arms and legs. The paralysis completely took over me, and I was able to understand why that shortness of breath corrupted my lungs. Anguish ran through my veins, as if I had done something terrible without even realizing it. Minutes, that seemed like years, passed, and I constantly tried to control my breathing to finally get back to thinking. I say that because at a certain point, I thought it all had been a delusion. Lack of oxygen to the brain can cause irreversible brain damage, so my worst nightmare of getting old wouldn't have needed to happen to stop me from being functional. Even sounds I wasn't able to hear. An overwhelming silence fell over the room I was in, and then I noticed the putrid smell that seemed to come directly from my body, rather than anything else in the room. I fought against what I had left of my thoughts, believing I would get rid of all that agony, but nothing helped me, literally nothing. Lost, anguished, and trapped with all these dreadful feelings, I had a meltdown and decided for the worst. I prayed I would die as soon as possible and to be free of that tormented body. Then, strength blazed through one of my arms, and I managed to get the knife, which I had forgotten on the table beside, next to the bed with the plate of food. Without hesitation I slit my neck, felt my blood pressure drop, and everything around me started to go dark, but before that I felt warm blood running down my hand, and, when I looked down, I noticed Lucy's dress was flooded with sticky red liquid. That night, I woke up breathless in the bed on the room next door. It is no coincidence I know how bad it is to become old and disabled. Lucy was a poor thing, but besides all that, she knew about the forces that lurked in every ignorant person. There really is something far beyond what we can perceive, and the simple privilege of being able to control your own body is something to be grateful for every day.